ba boom bum ba boom bum bum ba dum bum bum ba boom bum 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 ba boom bum a boom boom ba ba dum bum ba boom bum ba boom bum bum ba dum boom boom ba boom bum ba boom bum ba boom.
For the new section we're in now. Is that all right?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, we are not starting yet.
Okay. So, I think I asked the same question last time around, but I still want to make sure that I understand this properly. Here the Rebbe says, in the last section that we learned, about halfway from the top of the page, like several lines down from the top of the page, he says that "V'lochein b'Torah v'neshamas shemushroshim bechinas etzem ha'oyer," so etc. etc. So he's saying that the shoyrish of Torah and neshamas, which earlier we learned that Torah and neshamas are the only thing in all of the Seder Ishtashalos that are a dover atzmi, v'amiti, and not just the ha'ara, that they are mushash in etzem ha'oyer. Right?
Yep.
So they're not mushash in atzmus itself. And I guess my question about this is two things. One thing is just to understand, so why, if they're a davar amiti v'atzmi, why do we not say that they're mushrosh in atzmus itself, and only in etzem ha'oyer, although maybe that's not a significant distinction in this regard. But the second thing is that it struck me because in the V'yata Tetzaveh Mimer, which we all learned, the Rebbe says pretty unequivocally that he makes reference anyway to the neshamas being mushash beho atzmos, the shurish of neshamas as their mushash beho atzmos. So there, I want you to understand the Rebbe means there, even though he says mushash beho atzmos, he really means mushash be'etzem ha'oyer, and again, there's no real distinction. The etzem ha'oyer is kamei ha'etzem. Do you get the train of my question?
You have essentially answered your own question. But that's exactly what we are learning. That there is not a distinction in terms of what it stands for.
That's what is the reason then that we say that they're mushash be'etzem ha'oyer as opposed to mushash beho atzmos?
Nothing is mushash in atzmos per se. Only atzmos is mushash in atzmos.
In other words, no matter what we say about the etzem ha'oyer and surah atzmis and the shamas and Torah, there's still some step over there.
This is what we are learning. That etzem ha'oyer is a creation of atzmos.
It's a decision.
Yeah, it's a creation of atzmos, and thus it is fully representative of atzmos. It has an atzmos quality, an etzem quality.
But is it fair to say that since maybe this is okay? Is that since that's true, and we know that atzmos is not mutlach, that there should be not like the sun, not like light from the sun. Etzem ha'oyer from atzmos is not a must. Atzmos doesn't have to be presented in any way at all. It doesn't have to present itself at all.
Correct.
So it's conceivable that it could have been that there wouldn't be not etzem ha'oyer, not neshamas, and not Torah.
Right.
That's all true.
That's all true. One of the most expressive statements regarding being of Holocaust is And over here he brings it down. Right, 3 lines from the top. Right. And that includes that we cannot define Elokus. That principle in Elokus is that it creates worlds, or that it creates oil, for that matter.
Or neshamas.
Well, the neshamas are coming from the etzem ha'oir. But
it
etzem
doesn't
ha'oir.
have to be etzem ha'oir.
What?
It does not have to be.
It doesn't have to be etzem ha'oir. Etzem ha'oir was, that's right. Etzem ha'oir was created volitionally from atzmos.
So really, between everything else, between everything and atzmos, there is essentially a huge gulf, no matter what.
There is eventually...
Except that he decided to present himself with the chinas oyer.
Right.
He decided to connect himself to us.
Right. And the greatest and the most significant aspect in our relationship to him, in what he's providing us with, is in the fact that he made that decision.
Right.
When he made that decision, he made that
thank
decision.
You very much, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that response.
All right, you're quite welcome.
This last point you're making, he made the decision
without any solicitation, without any extraneous requirement.
And like we said before, not to fill any gap, not to...
He created the whole phenomenon. Baruch, I'd like you to listen to you. Are we on?
We're recording, yes.
All right. I want to correlate this which we just now discussed, which we're discussing all the time, which is really a very difficult thing to relate to because you can't have a grasp on it. It's like yes and no coming together. But the more we understand and the more we relate to it, we see its richness and the truth that comes through it. The Rambam, which we quote all the time, says that the foundation of all foundations, which is the basis of all reality, and Amud HaChochmes, and the pillar of wisdom, which means what permits wisdom to flourish and have a consciousness. It is the knowledge that there is a first being.
You're emphasizing lately that statement includes the proposition that the first thing is being and not non-being.
Right. This knowledge you have before any wisdom. Wisdom is founded on this knowledge. This is a broad principle, but the point which I wanted to point out, which would help us relate to this, is, okay, I understand that this is a foundation of all foundations. Yeah, that's the beginning of all existence. How is this a necessity for wisdom? Why is wisdom dependent on it? Why can't we apply wisdom to a secondary level? I see there's a world, and let me figure out the world. So without a further elaboration of the question, because I'm sure the question is very clear for everyone. The principle that the Rambam is telling you is just the contrary of that which is implied in the question, which we also discuss all the time. The whole principle of wisdom, the definition of wisdom, of Chokhmah, is that there is no other source of existence but in the wisdom. Wisdom means that this is what defines your awareness of existence. The Chokhmah itself provides the sense of reality. If the reality is because you touch the object with your hand, and then you try to understand what it is, that's not a reality that has a wisdom foundation. And that reality, as a matter of fact, conceals wisdom. Wisdom becomes secondary, subservient to that reality. When we say that we have Chokhmah, we have wisdom, that means Chokhmah is the one that initiates your knowledge that there is anything. This is the famous statement that how does a Yid know that there is a world? Hey, it says so in the Torah. This is a high madrigi in avoida, but in terms of wisdom, that is principle.
It's almost. I'm saying if that's the definition of wisdom, then it's like of course that it has to come from a primary.
From a primary being.
Yehuda is jumping ahead, I guess, but I'm waiting for the connection between this wisdom and
how can there be a knowledge, a real knowledge, not an imaginary knowledge?
Without that truth.
Without anything tangible, any experience. Because you realize that real reality is prior to experience. Motzei Rishon, that it begins from a Motzei Rishon. Any knowledge that we're discussing it all the time that begins with not being into being is not a wisdom type of knowledge. It's not knowledge coming from wisdom, it's knowledge that's being imposed upon you through a physical experience. I've been speaking lately in different settings, in different forums, about the principle of objective knowledge. This is one of those very powerful misrepresentations of a scientific approach. So you have to know things objectively. So I say very simply, if you walk into a table and it hurts you, is that objective knowledge or is that subjective knowledge?
Subjective.
What?
Subjective.
I don't hear what you're saying.
Objective.
That's objective?
Subjective, that's what it is.
Subjective. That's the whole basis of all scientific approach.
Do you know the difference? Subjective and objective.
Subjective is best in you.
How do we get an objective? What is the objective knowledge of the world? What is the wisdom element in knowing the world? I know I see it's there. I have no idea where it's coming from. It has no basis to be. That's the way the world. That's the world that's presented to us. Not because I experience, not because it hurts me when I walk into the table. It's just a reality. And then I begin to think, that sense of reality What am I seeing? I'm seeing that there is a first being.
What is the connection? How does seeing the world from that perspective?
There is a being before I experience it. It doesn't come from not being, from, I said, it's something pushing me. Nothing is pushing me. Here, the Rebbe once, by Farbrengen, one time particularly, says, Ot means here is the Rebbe. Ot. What is Ot? Because that's the real sense that a person really experiences. And that is that experience is tantamount on is dependent, is a derivative of his of the neshama recognition, knowledge that there is a first being, that reality comes from a being, not from a non-being. And therefore, when he sees the world, he accepts it. Of course, there is. Why should there not be? There is a being. So, and here, this being is presenting me with a worldly being, with worldly existence. I have no problems with that. That's all it is.
This is perceiving reality without experience.
That's right. Perceiving reality through wisdom, through chokhmah.
Which is rooted in Emunah. It's through the Emunah. Above the Emunah, of course.
We misunderstand the word Amunah. And I would say yes, but I'm sure it will be misunderstood. Amunah is translated as faith. And sometimes it's called as blind faith. And I object to that completely. No such thing as blind faith. Yes, it is rooted in Amunah, because Amunah is representing the fact that I'm alive. That I have a neshama. But I'm living, that's Amunah. That's before any koiches begin to function. The reality of life itself, that's Amunah. When we say Oineg and what's so forth.
Isn't the belief in this principle there's a first being? Rashid, there's a first being related on?
Yes.
You believe that there's a first being.
You don't believe, you know.
You know,
but
yeah.
This knowledge is called belief.
And that's
because there's no way for you to explain
through the chokhmah.
What?
And that's through the chokhmah.
That creates chokhmah.
That creates chokhmah.
That creates chokhmah. This is the primary knowledge.
That's about
Which is called, we call it Amunah. Why is it called Amunah? Because this is beyond understanding, beyond explaining. Yes, it is. Yes, Ot. Here's the reality. Yes.
Exactly for when we see a world, when we see a world, we see the motivation before we experience it.
Yes.
What the experience is called when we see it, the experience is while we see the world, and then we say it's before we saw it.
Experience in a simple thing is, how does it affect me? What makes me say, yes, I have to accept this world? Who cares if there is a world or not? That's experience. Without wisdom, you don't ask that question. Without wisdom, you know that there is a first being, and your aim is to relate to that truth, to that first being. Mr. Chosm wants to know things because it's true, not because it affects me.
But what is this knowing? But what is the knowing?
How should I explain to you what that knowing is? Are you alive?
Yeah.
What is that?
But the belief that there's a first
No, wait
being,
a second. Answer me my question. What does that mean?
that I believe I'm alive.
Not you believe. Are you alive?
Of course.
Yes. What does that mean to you? What does it mean? How do you know you're alive? That if he pinches you, it'll hurt?
Hmm? What is the question?
You know that you're alive because if he pinches you, you'll say, ow. That's how you know you're alive?
Part of it, I guess.
Okay, so that's what we're pointing out. That there is an infinitely much deeper sense of living than that. And that's where wisdom is coming from. And this is what
and
lets you
wisdom
know
is
that
being
there is a
created,
first being. What?
And the wisdom is being created by this, say, emunah.
Yeah.
The emunah has been created this wisdom.
Paltiel?
Yes, sir.
And you're saying that we can and do know this presence of the first being with the knowledge that comes before Chokhmah, whatever we're calling that. This is because, I'm asking to go back, this is because our neshamas are mushrash be'etzem ha'or. That's how come we have this.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Well, there is much to elaborate on this because a certain aspect of it is even available to non-Jews who do not have a neshama that's mushras and atzmus. But the entire presentation that the Rambam gives, that there's a first being that brings everything forth, and that the truth of his presence is represented in everything that exists, and that it is imperative upon us to serve him, that's exclusively Jewish.
What?
That's true. That's true. Exclusively Jewish.
What?
Exclusively Jewish.
All right, let's continue.
You really want us to get this point, huh?
I don't know exactly what line we finished. It's interesting how that happens. We're going to start. We're going to start 4 lines from the beginning of the second section on page Kuf AyinBase. So here we started actually digging into the Indian, the Ayin instruction of Lifnei HaTzimtzum. It says that in Ayin instruction of Lifnei HaTzimtzum, there are madreges even there. In general, the madreges there are due to the 2 elements of etzem ha'or and hispashus ha'or. Once there are 2 aspects, etzem ha'or and hispashus ha'or, that explains how they could be madreges altogether. And this etzem ha'or and hispashus ha'or, this represents, this is essentially the idea that we've been speaking the whole time, that Atzmus wanted to represent itself in Oyer. And what is, like we're saying, so that's synonymous with Atzmus. And the Neshamas are Mushas be'etzem Oyer, that's the same thing as Mushas and Atzmus. But it's not. What's the difference? The difference is that in Oyer, there is the Oyer aspect. There is the Etzem aspect and there is the Oyer aspect. The Etzem aspect is the fact that it is Atzmus that initiated the whole thing. It is there only because Atzmus wanted. Then there is the Oyer aspect is that it wanted to be represented in Oyer. Oyer means to be represented in a presence, to be knowable, so to speak. This is the Hispashtus Oyer.
What's the Etzem aspect? Just that Etzem created it?
Yes, that's right. That's exactly what we learned the whole time.
And Etzem Oyer has his pashtus, or Oyer has his pashtus and Etzem doesn't.
That's right. Right. And this is what's called Atzilus Diklolus. This is called Atzilus Diklolus. Atzilus Diklolus, as we said, that there are within our realm, so to speak, we have four worlds: Asiya, Yitzira, Bria, and Atzilus. And Atzilus, as we always explain, is a world of a different category than the other three worlds. The other three worlds are the category of being created worlds. Atzilus is like an emanation of the Ein Sof of Kesed. It's not really a creation. Nevertheless, it is probably called a world. Why is it called a world? Because it has Oires and Kelim, because a multiplicity element. Therefore, it's called a world.
Actually, when we answered our colleague on the phone, you said that the created, the Etzem created the this was bothering me, and now that you just underscored what's bothering me, because Atzilus, from my understanding, is something which emanates. It's not really an effortful endeavor for the Shemesh to create there. It's an automatic emanation. So why do you use a Lashon creation in the response to the person that called you?
Okay, so this is what we learn in this manner. And it's a phenomenal statement which must be understood. Atzilus from Kesed is an emanation.
Oh, so it's not creation, okay.
It's not a creation.
Okay, fine. Okay.
It's from an emanation.
But
Atzilus, the closer, the oil from Atzmus is a creation.
The R from Atzmus, okay, the R from Atzmus is a creation.
And yet, even though it's a creation, we still say that this oil has an etzem quality, because it was Atzmus that created.
Good.
Because Atzmus created, that's why it has the element, or because Atzmus wanted to be represented
The fact that Atzmus wanted to be represented the oil is still an oil, still a creation. The Atzmus element in the oil is in the fact that it was initiated from Atzmus. In other words, if oil was created in response to some kind of external solicitation, then it's not Atzmus. Like if a Talmud comes and asks the Rav a question, and the Rav gives him an answer, that's not the Rav's wisdom. This is a wisdom that he is responding to the Talmud. A Rav's wisdom is when he initiates, says, listen, here is what I want to tell you.
But we pointed out that Atzmus wanted to be presented in oil. Isn't that?
Yes. This explains what the initial want was. He wanted to, that's why we say this oil really has an Atzmus element. He wanted Atzmus, but the real Etzem element, what is oil? Where does oil come from? There is only Etzem. How come there is oil? If Atzmus want to create oil, just oil per se, then the oil is insignificant. As we spoke at the time, and there's no such thing. Why should Atzmus want to create oil? If Atzmus wanted to create oil that is representative of Atzmus, then it makes sense.
And if that's the Atzmus element, then then the oyer element begins where? When it actually begins to be mispashit.
The capability of Yispashtus is already an oil element.
This is after it's created, initiated?
Yes. That is the meaning that you wanted to have oil. That there should be the oil element, that which can be mispashit. The different hispashtus really requires an elaboration, but that's we're trying to break through this logjam over here and to get to it. Eventually, we'll get to understanding what hispashtus is. Okay, so the oil in Seishel Lifnei HaTzimtzum is referred to as Atzilus de Klolis, which means Atzilus on the overall level. Let me try and see if we can focus in and understand the concept of the overall and the specific. Specific means that if you wanted, you want to build a certain structure, a certain system, and then and the system has these four levels of Atzilus, Bri, Yitzir, Asiyah. Why do you want to build this structure? Because this structure has a representation of a complete truth. It has a source, Atzilus, and that which is the source of Atzilus, and then it develops all the way down to Asiyah. Then there is the Klonus. The Klonus means the overall principle. Overall means that essentially there are no distinctions in Madrigas, because it's an overall reality. Within that overall reality, and on a subtle and overall level, we can identify also different aspects, different levels. Like when you say that the oil Lifnei HaTzimtzum is called Atzilus de Klolis. Atzilus, the word Atzilus means a world. Before the Tzimtzum, there is no world. The whole concept of world doesn't exist. World requires, the definition of world, as the Alter Rebbe says, it requires Zman U'Mokim, past, present, and future. Zman U'Mokim, that it occupies space. Oil Lifnei HaTzimtzum, oil in Sof, does not have any of these qualities. As we explain all the time, that what did the Tzimtzum, how come the oil Lifnei HaTzimtzum is Loi Shayach, had no Shayachas to Eilumis? Because it doesn't have the element of Hamshocha. In order that it should be past, present, and future, it has to be a present and not present. That's a Hamshocha. There is a source from which it comes, and then it's Nimshach, like it's a Nimshach through a kav, into a vacancy. But there is no vacancy. There is the entire reality. So therefore it doesn't qualify properly for the term of world. But biklolus, which means biklolus means within the realm of reality, within the realm of Ein Sof, of Elokus, there are also madrigas. the thing on a conceptual level, if you wish. There are also madrigas. On a conceptual level, the oil shlifnei hatzimtzum, because it's oil, it's called atzilus. Why is it called atzilus? Because there is the element of the hispashtus oil. That's the definition of oil. Therefore, there is primarily, it is, as we said, this is the atzmus representing itself in oil. This is what gives it its presence. But there is also the hispashtus. The hispashtus qualifies it to be called by a term that's called it. And that's which we'll discuss in a moment. Ultimately, we have to get to the point or have a chance to explain the principle of hispashtus, and we'll be able to understand the whole principle here. V'noida. We know the whole inyan ho'atzilus hu bechinas hagilus. The whole principle of atzilus. Another.
Paltiel?
Yes.
Just before you go on, so the only thing that's not hispashtus is really that moment or the point of initiation of etzem ha'or.
No. Why? Give us a chance to know what hispashtus is, and then we'll be able to talk about it.
Okay.
The whole inyan ho'atzilus hu bechinas hagilus. What is the inyan of atzilus? As we said before, atzilus is not really a world in the true sense of the word. Because atzilus, as it says, atzilus is what's called oilam ho'elakus. Elakus versus world, very simple. World can be and not be. Elakus does not suffer these two definitions. Elakus is only a be. There's no not be. Elakus is a primary truth. Truth cannot not be. The Ram says, "Amit is himotzei nimtze kol hanimtzei." Where does God come from? Our first being. This is truth. Truth does not need to come from any place. It's not possible not to be. There's Amit. Atzilus is a lakus, and therefore it's not a world in the common sense of the word, which means it has a past, present, and a future. Nevertheless, we call Atzilus a world. Why? The whole inyan Atzilus. How the Atzilus is different than the Kesed, than that which is above it, is Bechinas Hagilus. This is inyan Hagilus. We discussed when we spoke about what the Rebbe explains the Indian from the Malik Olam, and then Seir Olam. So he explained in the Malik Olam, it's called an Oir Leki. We say the Malik Olam is bihispashtus, bihislapshus. It's mislavish in Kate. And we explained where there is the lakus element in this slapshus in Kalim. The slapshus in Kalim seems to be that it is a Kalim that's functioning. Where is the lakus element? The lakus element is that this hislapshus is not cumulative. It is in the Malik Kolam. It's in Malik Kolam all at the same time.
B'shavet.
Huh?
B'shavet.
B'shavet. All at the same time, not b'shavet. It's Mamalik. Kolam means all at the same time. There's no past, present, and future.
In Italian mentions,
Huh?
in Italian mentions it B'shavet, one of the prakim.
Yeah, that's Sefer Khan. That's not. So the point is that the principle of Alakus is that the Inyan, all Inyanim of Alakus are present there all the time. And the Malkulam means that these Inyanim are revealed. Which is the Gilui. They revealed, and this is the difference between Atzilus and that which is L'mayla Me'atzilus. L'mayla Me'atzilus is the Alakus as it is unto itself. Then come Atzilus, and it is revealed. What's revealed? That which is contained before Atzilus. But, and this is the great phenomenon of Atzilus, that on the one hand it's revealed, on the other hand it's revealed without a past, present, and future. Without a past, present, and future, by definition, means that there is a moment where it's not and a moment that it is. Atzilus is Alakus. There's no not. Even though in Atzilus there is what's called a Seder Hishtaushus Asfiras from Chochma into Bina into Ras and so forth, and yet the entire structure is revealed at once. This is Atzilus, because it reveals the source, not the development, but the source itself. You will have to accept the statements as they come.
Why did you bring up Mamalik Kol Alman here?
Well, I'm saying Baruch. Again, you have to accept the statements as they come because it's impossible to make two statements in the same breath. So they have to come piecemeal. So the Inyan HaTzilus is Inyan HaGilui. Let me get down to his pashtus or air, and we'll be able to discuss this without restriction. This principle of Gilui within Oir Sof Shel Lifnei HaTzimtzum, Hu Bechinas Hispashtus Ha'oir, is the Hispashtus Ha'oir aspect. וכמו שכוסו במוקimach. I see this is going to be. Let me stop for a moment. The Gilui element is called Hispashtus Ha'oir. The principle of etzem and hispashtus within the oir is like this. We speak all the time, again we're going to go to the motion of the sun and the sunlight. Sunlight spreads out of the sun for millions of miles, and then it hits our earth and it makes it all visible. Now, visibility and our earth are contradictions, because our world is darkness. Let me elaborate on that a little bit. What is the difference between light and darkness? In our simple experience. If you enter the room and it's dark, you're going to identify all the objects within the room by touch. How they affect it. Can I walk or can I not walk? You identify them by their physical presence. And then it makes no difference whether it's a table, a chair, or a wall, or a plain rock. Makes no difference at all. Makes a difference. It could be a human being for the human. It's the same sense of knowledge. This is what things in dark. That is the fundamental state of the world. When you enter a room and it's dark, and you go and you feel your way around and you identify the various objects, everything that you identify, like the form of the table, the form of the chair, and all that, this is in addition to its physical presence. It remains primarily a physical presence. Doesn't change. Doesn't become primarily the form or its functionality. It always remains physical. Except the physical has a form like that and a form like that. This is, in fact, I always mention this is the way scientists identify everything in the world. But primarily it's a physical entity. But it has a certain form, and somehow it hits a human being and says, oh, this can be used like this, it can be used like that. But actually there's nothing there.
This is in the dark.
That's in the dark. And the world essentially is dark. When you say you bring light into the world, you're bringing into the world something that is, as far as this world is concerned, super worldly. There's no light in the world as such. Especially, like we say, sunlight. Sunlight is a pure light that doesn't. In the world, we can understand light when you have a wick, something being consumed, burned up. The sunlight is just pure light. So that is entirely super worldly. This is called, how does it become light? Because the sunlight comes to us in this world. In what form does it come? So this element that we have sunlight over here, and it illuminates our world, we have two distinct principles, two distinct levels. There is the level where the sunlight hits an object and the light reverberates and deflects from the object, and it is a certain energy element that makes us be able to see it. Then there is the essential element of light per se, because light and our world don't know how to speak to each other. The reason we actually see is because we know that there is such thing as a sun. That light is a reality. And therefore we can relate to light in our physical world. In other words, if we were limited, if our identity with reality would be only darkness, there's no such thing as light. So as much light as you put, this is exactly, again, back to the scientists. They decided there's no such thing as light. So no matter how much light there is, it always reinterpreted from the darkness perspective. In order to see light and say, look, I entered this room, I don't see objects, I don't see wood, and so I see a table. What's a table? I say a table is a human keli. Represents a human functionality. I don't see a wood. That's light. In order to be able to see light, there has to be the presentation that there is such thing as light in a true sense, which you don't see from the world itself. This Inyan, that this true element of light can be presented into the world, that's called his pashtus ho'er. It's mispashit. It tells you, it tells you, in a place where there is darkness, you should know that such thing as light exists. And here is how you can experience it. going back up, why is there hispashtus oir? Like we spoke about the other day between Mamala and Seyud. Why is there hispashtus oir? Because there is etzem oir. Do I have you with me so far?
A little bit. I have one little stuck place.
Right.
Should I hold it?
Yeah, can you follow me? Why is it hispashtus oir? Because it's etzem oir. In other words, we're presented with light which contradicts my whole perception of world, what world is. What enables me to accept it and to relate to it? It is I can know that really the fact that the world is dark, that darkness, that's not the only reality there is. There's another reality, that's light. The sun, for example, is fundamentally light, bright, not dark. So, etzem ha'oyer provides for his hispashtus oyer. If there were no etzem oyer, then there would be there would be no hispashtus oyer. Then hispashtus oyer would be only that which is mislavish, which becomes part and parcel of the darkness. That it should present light per se, there has to be the etzem oyer. This is the same thing that we spoke about before. How do I understand thing in the world that the able to create the world? Because I know there's a first being. If not for that, it cannot, nothing else makes sense in terms of chokhmah. Hispashtus ha'oyer. This is the principle of Giluy. Giluy. So now let's see if we can understand the relationship there. We spoke about many times, again going back to the sun. The sun is what's called etzem behiri. Brightness, light to the sun, is at the same fundamental reality as darkness to us. No such thing as darkness in the sun. Doesn't exist. The sun doesn't know that darkness exists, just like we don't know that light exists. This is what's called therefore, if we go back to the sun itself, the sun doesn't have light because it doesn't have darkness. Light, by definition, that illuminates darkness, doesn't exist. So the sun doesn't have light. But the sun produces oir. Oir means representation of the sun. What is representation of the sun? This is about the two things that we said before. There is the fact the representation of the sun is the fact that light does exist, and light is a truth. In his hispashtus of the sun, what we have there is that the essential element of the sun, that the sun is brightness itself, his hispashtus is where its contrast with darkness is recognized. Within the sun itself, there is no contrast. It doesn't know darkness exists. Hispashtus in the pshat that it can actually tell you what I am, even in the place where it's dark. That's what Giluy. Giluy means relating the Inyan to reveal something in the place where it is not, the essence itself is not. So hispashtos does not merely mean that you take this something and spread it out. Hispashtos means that you are bringing something to a place where its essence is not present, and its essence will not be able to be understood and be related, to be accepted. What can be accepted is that such a thing as light exists. Those are the hispashtos, those are the gilus. So that the effect of the sun upon our world has this profound message. It changes our whole perception of the world. Our perception of the world is that it's dark. The sun tells you, no, it's not necessarily that. There is a visibility. What's visibility? Visibility is that you can know an object and relate to an object without being in contact with it. Because you can see the object because it's true, because it really exists, not because it affects you. That's the difference between light and darkness. What is the difference between light and darkness? Again, as we said before, there's a first being. Darkness is there is no first being. The whole being comes because it's affecting me. Light is that there is a truth to it. There is a real source for it. There's a first being. That's light. So it reveals that there's a truth to them. That's why we're able to see objects and relate to them without coming in contact with them, because we say, hey, they're really there, they're visible, because there's a reality to them, and we can relate to that reality. That's not light. That's not hispashtos. It's telling you its truth without eliminating your false perception, but illuminating your false perception. Saying, no, in the darkness there is a truth. That's in the hispashtos.
Etzem says there is only this truth.
That's right. Etzem, that's right.
Wow.
This is the pshat asay. A world and above world. Above world, there is no, as I said in Alakus, there's no, the whole Ayin is that Alakus and the pshat, the truth and so, motzirish and mamzikolim, motzirish, something exists because it exists. Truth itself. World exists because the truth created it. So there's a combination of the two things. On the one hand, he's only a creation. On the other hand, he represents the true being because the true being created it. So it has a truth also. But this is only the hispashtos, this is only the gilus. What's the gilus means? That this Ayin of true presence can be translated even where the true presence doesn't exist. What is a true presence mean in a world that is not truly present? True presence in a world that is not truly present is that I can recognize that this has a presence even if I don't touch it. That's true presence.
So beings that are, in contrast to the Etzem.
Just 1 second. I'll have to elaborate a little bit to come in later. Okay? The Baal Shem Tov says that Ahavas Yisrael pertains to a Yidden that you've never seen, that lives on the other side of the world, and you don't even know that he exists. You've never seen him. He doesn't exist. You don't know that he exists. What does it mean you have Ahavas Yisrael? What's your relationship to him? Your relationship to him is through his creator. He, on the other side of the world, represents his creator. And you are related to his creator. And therefore you know him and you have Ahava for him. This is the pshat reality, the pshat light, in a physical sense. You see things at a distance. How can you see things at a distance? Because there is one great reality, one great unity. You don't have to touch something for it to be. Who is with me?
Just one question?
Yeah.
Ruth said that the Etzem in itself, there's no concept of darkness because everything's contained within, everything is basically light. The awe which comes from it, its goal is to bring truth down to the world, to realize that things have a separate existence beyond interaction with me. It's truth. Now, being that the awe is like the Etzem, what causes transition where awe can be conscious, if you will, or where that there's a world which it needs to bring truth to, in contrast to the Etzem, where it's pure truth, and anything which is contrary to truth doesn't exist, so to speak. So what creates that transition? If the awe is coming from the Etzem, what causes...
The transition is right there, in that the Etzem doesn't have oil altogether.
Right.
When he creates oil, he's creating a level, an entity that says that there is a truth.
Right. So my question is, to create something, you need to understand that there is a need for it. Okay. Being that the
no, there's no need for it. If there's no need for it
for itself, not for itself, but for any. The world needs this truth.
If there is a world, right, then it's not Etzem. Etzem is the pshat I say.
Right. So
Atzmus, the truth of Atzmus itself, had a will, a want.
As that's the Ratzon Hashem. Okay. Oh, very good. So that's what you call the Ratzon
That's
Hashem.
we discussed a whole long discussion about Ratzon.
Very good. So that's basically what it's getting at. So that's Ratzon, which creates that transition that he wants to. Okay, very good. Good. That's good.
I was confused why you explained this, that you could see an object from far away, that this was the significance of light, or this. Why wouldn't you have explained it as the light shows you that the object has a meaning that precedes the object? In other words, this is where I thought, I don't.
Okay, please understand the following. We are so used to it. That's why we discussed. It was very helpful that we discussed before this Rambam, and also that the basis of Chochmah is to know that it's the first being. We always point out a very simple and interesting phenomenon. Show a child a beautiful picture. What will a child do with it?
Eat it.
The first thing he has to taste it. Why does he have to taste it?
The sight is not real to him, and the sight is not.
Because a reality that he can't touch and taste is not real to him. His chokhmah is not being developed. He doesn't know that there is a first being. But reality is really real. Reality is what you touch. So he sees it, he wants to relate to it, he has to put it in his mouth.
Again, what does the first being have to do with the seeing?
The first
something?
being tells you, wait a second, I have no problems with seeing this without coming in touch with it. It's real. How can I relate to it that it's real? Because reality is really, being is really before not being. I don't need to explain how I see it. It's real.
So that's the message when the light goes on in a room and you see the table.
Principle of visibility.
When you see the table, the real message is not. The real message is that it's real.
That's
that
right.
all these things are real. And what does real mean? It means that it has a human element. That's more elaboration.
That's what I always point out, right? We spoke about it, Shabbos. It's coming to the surface. What is a table? Is it 4 legs and a board? Is it a utility, a cater that, I see a table, I can use it? A table tells me that there's a human being. The presence of a human being, that's the reality. You enter a home and you see a table. You sense the presence of a human being. Not the presence of the table. That's a completely different reality. This is the first being. This is the, I say this, within the realm of experience, a human experience.
When you see a forest or whatever, when the light shines on nature.
One second, I'm not finished with this. You see a forest, we can go into this. It's much more involved because we are limiting our Muslim to something which we experience on a daily basis in a very tangible manner. Just like we say about you, if you see the sky, there's much to talk about. But definitely, there is a certain sense of reality that you sense that there is a real source of chayas, a real koyach in the earth that is unlimited.
But does it always have to come down to a human element?
Not a human element, it could be a godly element. There has to be, in other words, if you see things, you see a forest, it's a forest, wait a second, watch out, it's dangerous to go there. That's a completely different vision.
Right.
But to see things from a chokhmah perspective, chokhmah is not subjective. How is it going to affect you? Chokhmah is to know the truth. Amiti. Amiti is emotzah. To know the truth, that's a completely different approach.
Is the seeing the human element is that a step to seeing the godly element?
Yes, that's what we always say. That's Chokhmah and Mushis, and the Seichel and Mushis, and the sense of Seichel and
So you're using these mishalim because it's a mashal for the godly element.
The reason that the Mushi, okay, very good. The reason that the human Seichel and Mushi is a mashal, the Seichel and Ki, is what we are learning here. Because the human being is B'Tselem Elokim. Because the human being really doesn't belong in this physical world. It's an unnatural, it's an anomaly over here. He has concepts that do not make any sense from a physical worldly perspective. And as much as we know it and we experience it, there's no way you can explain it. Why? Because he's literally a godly presence. Like we say all these various examples. You come to a party and you're not invited, you feel uncomfortable. Why? Nobody pays attention, nobody bothers, nobody minds. Because a human being is a truth. He has to belong. He has a true presence. That's how a human being has ownership of property. What's ownership? Tell me what's ownership. Give me a physical description of what's ownership.
As a right.
Sorry?
As a right.
There's a right. What's that?
That's right.
What's that?
It's a truth. It's a truth.
It's a truth. It's a truth that is imbued in a human being by his creator. There's no worldly means of explaining it at all.
Although, by Signai, we said that you can explain it in terms of Mali and his lapsus in the world.
It's absent in the world, but it's still godly. He said.
Do you have time yet for a question?
Yes, it's your turn, Baruch. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is lost already a little bit backwards. I'm trying to, when we're speaking about visibility, Ispashtus brings the statement of the Etzem to a place where the Etzem isn't, and for that matter can't be. So then we use the example of light, like when you walk into a room, and there's light as opposed to you walk into a room and there's dark. You sometimes make the distinction in light that we have here in the world between the light that we use to see, that shows us things, and the light that's daylight. Daylight didn't come into this discussion here today, as far as I can see, or did it and I missed it?
No, you did not. He did not, and you did not miss it. What we have done, okay, daylight, just as when we spoke about the Malikulam and Sirikulam, we spoke also on the human level. And there are two aspects. There is the Mamale and there is the Seive, and the effect of the Seive upon the Mamale. So, when we talk about like daylight, we're talking about the Seive per se. Then there is within light that we experience in sight. That also is an allusion of a truth, of a daylight.
So this is, in relation to his pashtus, this light that shows us the room in a completely different way than if we had to feel our way around it. This is the Mamale light, but that Mamale light carries the Soive, which is like the daylight Bechlal.
Right. And the reason we can relate to it, is because we, in our wisdom, know of that truth, as manifested in the fact that a child does not.
We in our wisdom can relate to the truth, meaning the Soivev.
That's right.
So when we say that the message, that what is this Hispashtus Eir, it's a statement that the reality is light, not darkness. That statement carries itself.
Within the context, between the word of the context, it does not contradict the worldly reality. What's happening in there?
I can't hear you either because someone's talking over there, someone's talking on the phone.
Gentlemen, please mute your phone.
Whoever is talking should mute their phone.
Or stop talking, either way.
Could be that these people are not
It's not in the conference.
Yeah, this is part of Golan's work.
All right, that's quickly, okay? We are being usurped. The conference apparently is being usurped. The conference room. Here's the thing. You brought out a very important point. If the light is going to contradict worlds, as the reality is not darkness.
I can't do any more Paltiel. I'll
Call you on your phone.
Can you hear me?
Do a private call.
Yeah, I'll call
anybody
him.
else?
I'll call him.
Hello? There's interference. Okay.
Tell him I'm calling him.
All right. Shlomo Anderson is calling you directly on a regular phone.
How many people?
Yeah, okay, good.
All right. Can you hear me now?
He hasn't picked up yet.
Or pick up?
Yes, now I can hear.
Okay. Okay. Here's a very important point. The light does not contradict the materials of the world. That's what the light does not say. No, the reality is not darkness. The reality is light. It doesn't say that. If it would say that, then it negates the materials of the world.
If you hang up on the conference phone, it still can be heard here.
There's nobody here.
But maybe someone else is on.
Is anybody else on the conference room? I guess not. Okay. All right. The light does
The
not.
light doesn't say that. It
Doesn't say that. The light
the reality
says.
is light.
The light says that there is also the reality of light.
Not here, but someplace else.
Someplace else, which can be reflected, which can also reveal in your world also another element of truth.
And that is his pashtus ha'or.
That is his pashtus ha'or, exactly right.
And this is daylight?
No, daylight per se is representation of a higher state of light per se. Like we say, during daylight, the sun rules. Memshavas bayim. Sun rules means it eliminates darkness completely.
Okay, this statement of there is light here that makes things a reality here, this is mamale.
This is Mamale, right? This illuminates the dark world. It remains dark, but it illuminates it.
But it's still a hispashtus of, this is still considered hispashtus ha'or.
This is still his pashtus ha'or, and as I pointed out, in this his pashtus reveals to you a deeper truth within your own mitzias, within the dark mitzias.
Which is the different forms of light.
Which is that even the dark world is also visible. How come it's visible? Because it's also true.
So
it's not just something that you touch.
So it's another form of light.
What do you mean it's another form of light? This is the lower
that
form.
brings an understanding that there is a depth and to this world that is makes us perceive that there's something deeper. That's a form of light, right?
I don't know.
Light is just not physical sun.
Light
is also when you're understanding something in its pneumius. You get it through light. Your light is being given to you. Wisdom is light. Isn't wisdom light?
Definitely.
So that's what I'm saying, that there's a sunlight, there's a daylight, there's sunlight, and there's a light of understanding things to their depth.
Well, I think
that was somebody else calling.
Somebody else calling.
Is that correct?
I don't know what you're trying to say.
There's different. Besides physical light, there's ruchnius light.
Ruchnius light, which when you understand something that has depth, pneumius, and then you figure it out, it's because you got light.
Physical light is only a muscle for ruchnius light. The real light is ruchnius light.
Okay.
There's no question about it.
Okay. So light could be in various ways. Light could be. I was thinking about this for a while already. That so spiritual. It's like we have the light to our vision. We have light to moving our hands. It's strength, but the strength itself, deeper level of this in the strength is light in a way. No.
Again, I don't know what you're hearing at. There's highest, there's a light.
Okay. So meaning the light as a spiritual form and as a physical form.
Let me give you a piece of some.
I just repeated what had just been said before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take things piecemeal. Let's not try to get to piecemeal. Everything individually. To correlate everything into one Nakuda is we're not up to that. It's unnecessary. Okay. Okay. All right. So have a good day. I hope we got some hispashtus.
Yeah, a little bit of his pashtus. Okay, I'm sure we'll go further with the clarification.
Yeah, Mitzvah.
This the Mamali light, the light that illuminates the darkness, this is where we spend most of our time. This is where we should be spending most of our time.
That's right.
This is the main avoda, basically.
Exactly.
That the darkness exists, but we recognize that it's real. That the world.
I would like this phone, but I'm not going to touch it because it's not mine.
Because it was
That's where the rubber hits the road.
That's true. So in a little sense, right?
It really is.
It's
These inyanim are definitely surfacing. They're definitely becoming more real. They're definitely. It's mamish years, but it's really, really happening.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
What Rami meant to say is to rephrase what he's saying, to reframe it, but it is, to me at least it reflects the sheer that he's understanding light is in terms of truth. Light is truth. What's truth? Truth is something which is totally independent, not dependent on any single variable. So that's what he means.
What we are trying to say is not that light is truth, but light is dependent on truth. It's revealing truth. If there is no truth, then light wouldn't function. Light is an intangible.
But because it comes from truth, the etzem has the ability to elicit the awareness that the table is true.
Yeah, but not the light is not the truth.
No, truth is the etzem. But because it comes from the etzem, it has the ability to elicit our perception that this table not just has a utility, but it reflects on something which also asks me, whether it be the person or the Eibishter. But that's what he means. That in a spiritual sense, that light is more than just.
Light is a numeric clarifier, no? Clarifier.
Yeah,
clarifies to the truth. Clarifies
right.
the.
That's what he's saying, basically. Right.
Okay. Very good.